Smiling faces, the family way. Margaret Lewin Quilting will make your day.
Hi, I'm Margaret Lewin and I'd like to welcome you to Margaret Lewin Quilting. I hope you enjoyed the little slideshow at the beginning. Those are my children. It's my daughter Jacqueline, her husband John, and their 3 little kids. And I thought, considering this quilt was in honor of them and their family, I would put a few clips of them in here. And there's more waiting for you at the end. So make sure you stay all the way to the end. This is our second quarter quilt that I'm announcing today. I'm going to show you a picture of it. Here is the quilt. Please excuse the piece of paper and the fact that my ink is definitely running a little bit low. I'm in the middle of putting this quilt together because I wanted to sew right along with you. I really enjoy quilt-alongs and being able to do things along with you. So the first block that we're going to be working on is the blue one, and you can see my blue and white block hanging up back there. I'm really excited to be able to put this quilt together. The quilt overall is in honor of my children, but really it's in honor of all veterans all over the world, not just our country. But here in the United States, we've got a couple holidays coming up, and I really wanted to honor those holidays. The ones coming up are Flag Day, and the other one is Memorial Day. One of the things I kept in mind when I designed the quilt was the size. And the size of this quilt is 72 by 72. So it is the perfect quilt for Quilts of Valor. It does meet all of the requirements, which is also a really neat thing. So if you've got a veteran out there that you'd like to make a quilt for, this one might be the perfect fit. So if you'd like to see how I go about putting this block together, please stay tuned and I would love to share it with you. We're going to start out with our blue block. What we're going to do is start by prepping all of the blue blocks for the quilt. I've already made one of them, so I'm only going to be prepping 11. You're going to prep 12 of them. By prepping all of our blocks first, it's going to make our process a lot easier as we go forward with it. To have to stop and cut each block or to be piecing blocks one at a time with this type of pattern would become very tedious really fast, and you would want to skip a step. And this is one block that you really should not be skipping steps on. As long as you follow each of the steps, this quilt block can be accomplished from the beginner all the way to the advanced quilter, because the secret of it is one simple thing: square as you go. And that's what we're going to do. This is the block that we're going to cut out. You'll be cutting 12 of everything that I cut today. But before we cut, we have one more really important step to do. And that step has to do with pressing our fabric. I'm going to set this aside and grab my best press. This is my Mary Ellen's best press, and this is what I'm going to use to press my fabrics. This is a piece left over from when I made my first block, so I'm going to just press this one. I'm going to turn it over. It is pretty pressed. I am going to give it just a little bit of starch, and then I'm going to press it again. Now I'm going to do this with quite a few of my strips just to get me going, because I truly am going to cut every piece that I need for the quilt first, and then this one was used partially too. Then I am going to put my block together. I'm not going to start putting my block together until I get my 12 blocks all cut and ready to go. I'm going to give this one a little bit more starch because it already has been pressed. Turn it over and get it ready. The next thing I'm going to do is show you how I go about pressing the other ones. So I'm just going to starch, and I showed you the other day how I did it. I'll link the video for it. But what I'm going to do is open up all my fabrics, and I'm going to put a layer of best press on them. I'm just going to, nice layer of best press. I'm pressing it on the right side of the fabric. I'm going to let that soak in a little bit. Just kind of be patient for a minute. And then I'm going to press it really well with my iron. And I'm going to press the entire length of it. Then once I've pressed it one time down, I'm going to actually press it again. So I'm going to take my best press. Now this is the right side of my, or the wrong side of my fabric actually. And I'm going to put some best press on that one. And then I'm going to turn it over and I will iron it one more time. Then I'm going to set it aside and let it cool for a minute. Once I've done a whole bunch of my strips, then I'm going to take it all over to the cutting table and I'm going to cut each and every one times 12 so that I have got all of my blocks for my blue cut. Then I'm going to work on my white and I will get that all cut and ready to go. And what I will do is show you all of my nice fabrics all cut and ready to go before I start actually sewing the blocks. So you'll see what they look like. So I'm going to get to pressing. You guys are going to be busy pressing too, and then we will get right back to this quilt. Here's my ruler, and I've gotten all of my pieces cut, and I'm purposely putting them over onto the ruler because I do have to carry them over to my sewing machine, and I really just want to keep them nice in order so that I don't have any issues when I go to start sewing. So here they are. All right, so here's all my strips. I'm going to take these over to the sewing machine and I'm going to set them there because we're going to do this in steps. But these are all of my blue blocks. They're all cut out. The next thing I'm going to do is I am going to take my white strips and I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to press them really well with my Mary Ellen's Best Press on both sides. Then I'll take them over to the cutting table and cut them per the directions. I am going to only cut the 12 out that I need to make my blue block. I will work on the other ones once I'm done with the blue block, but we're going to get all the blues done first, then we'll do the reds. So that's what I'm going to do right now, and then I'll be back. One thing that I do want to tell you you're going to want to have on hand, you're going to want one of these lint rollers. You can see mine's quite dirty right this second, but it's good because I have used it in this project quite a bit. What you're going to want to do is roll your strips, especially across the cut, once you open them up. So let me grab one of the other ones. This is one of my other ones. This is a brand new one. And when I go to work on it, open it up, I'm going to take my lint roller and just go over it a couple times good, then flip it over. And you can see my lint roller is well, at least I think you can. It's completely full. There's no sticky spot left to pick things up. So I'm going to pull the paper off. And I'm going to do it again before I even unroll this, because I don't want to be unrolling it before I've done this, because I'll get a mess all over the place. These rolls make an absolute mess. In fact, this one I'm probably gonna do twice because I really don't want, I just don't want to deal with the mess. I'm being lazy. Nothing other than that. There, now that's better. I've at least got a couple of spots left that don't have fuzz on them. And I'll turn it over and do it one more time. And so, I mean, that really does help cut down on the mess. I'm going to set this one aside for later because we're going to need this one. And I'm just going to start working on this one right here. Going to do exactly what I did on the blue one, and I've already shown you that. But that's what I'm going to do. I'll get it cut up. Then I'm coming back and we're going to start putting that block together. I'm pressing my white strips and I want to take a second to show you something. I'm going to switch these two out because I want to bring this one closer for you. And I want to show you something. This is what happened when it got cut. Can you see that? That there's a difference there and there's a difference here. That happens. It's part of the manufacture process. And quite honestly, they try everything they can do to have every piece perfectly straight and have it cut 100% in the grain, but the truth of the matter is that nothing is absolutely perfect in this world. So consequently, we end up with things like this. Mind, this one actually has 3 spots. It's got one here, and one here. I'm going to fold this piece up and I'm just going to put it aside because as I go through my cutting process, I may need a piece that's just this big. Well, I can do that just here. I may need a piece that will fit between here and here. I'm going to put this one aside. I'm not going to throw it out. I'm just going to hang on to it because further down the line, I may need another piece very similar or one that fits within these sizes. Then I'll pull this one out and trim it up. I just don't want it as part of my original pieces that I'm going to be cutting my longest strips first from. So I'm just going to fold this up. I'm going to set it aside, and I'm just going to remember that I have a piece that's not perfect and I may need it later on. So I wanted to show you that before I went any farther. Here's the piece I'm currently pressing. I'll just move it up. And I just take my iron, let the weight of my iron do the bulk of the work. I may hold this to keep it straight, but I'm not pulling at it at all because that will stretch it. I'm just gently ironing it. I'll finish ironing on this side because remember I sprayed the other side. Then I'm going to pick it up and I'm just going to flip it over. I should have sprayed it first, huh? I'm just going to leave it there. Then I'm going to spray it. Then I'll flip it over. And then I'm going to press this side. And that will give me a lot of stability in the fabric when I go to cut it. So that's what I'm going to do. And I will be back in a few minutes when I have all of my white pieces cut for my block, okay? And it is going to take me a couple minutes, so I'll see you shortly. I've worked out a couple of things that we can do to put this block together so that it's not quite as bad. One of the things about the log cabin block is the fact that it has to be squared every step of the way. If we aren't squaring it every step of the way, we're not going to end up with a square block in the end. So our very first step, we're going to make the least amount of blocks first, then we'll go tackle the red. So the blue and the white comes first, then we're going to start working on the red. So the first thing that we're going to do is take the 2.5 inch blue square and we're going to add the 2.5 by 1.5 inch white square to it. So I'm just going to take it, lay it over on top of itself, and I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch seam. Now I'm going to only use white thread on this quilt from the start to the finish. Switching from the blue to the red blocks is not going to change it. I'm only going to be using white thread, and it is Aurifil that I am using. So I'm going to come on over to the other camera and I'm going to just start sewing. I am really kind of ignoring these little zigzags that are made from the pinking shears. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew what's called a scant 1/4 inch. Now the reason why we're doing a real scant 1/4 inch is because the measurements on this block are pretty precise and we want to square it up every step of the way. I'm using my number 37 foot from Bernina. And how I come up with a scant 1/4 is I lay it under the foot so that I just barely can't see the fabric at all. So it's right there on my edge and I'm going to start sewing. And once I start sewing, I'm going to keep going with all 12 of my blocks. I'm not stopping until I've done all 12. So I'm just going to pick up another one. I'm going to add it. Putting them together, bringing them right over to the sewing machine and stitching. And I'm going to do that to all 12. And you will be amazed at how much faster putting this block together goes when you put it together in this manner. If you were to do each one individually, I do guarantee you it will feel like it takes a lot longer to put it together. So I've got 3 done. I'm going to finish these up, and then I'm going to take you right over to the pressing table with me. We're going to press this, and then we are going to go over to the cutting table, and we're going to trim our block right up. So I will be back in just a minute. And we will get our block trimmed and move on to the next. All right, so I think you can see here are my 12 all sewn. I'm just going to take them like this right over to my cutting table or my pressing table, and I am not going to cut them apart till after I get over there. All right, I've got them all lined up right here at the pressing table. So the first thing I'm going to do is just go through and set my seams. To me, that's an important thing. It just kind of makes the fabric all nice and likes each other and makes them play nice together. Once I've done that, I'm going to grab my scissors and I'm just going to clip these all apart, because now what I need to do is I need to work on them one at a time. I'm going to cut them apart. I'm going to put them in a nice little stack for myself, and I am going to press all of them. So now I've got my strip stick, and the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to one by one take them, or I could put more than one down there at a time. So here's one. I'm going to finger press it open once, grab another one, put it down on the strip, finger press it again, that next one. So I could probably line 4 or 5 of these up at a time. Finger press it open again. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do is just take my iron right across them and press my seams open. Now, there is a reason why I'm pressing these open. And the reason is because I don't want to see the blue fabric underneath the white block. So I'm going to set this back for a second, and I'm going to turn them over just like this so that you can see them. And I'm going to grab my finished block so that you can see what it really does look like. So first I'm going to press these one more time. And let those sit for a minute, and now I'm going to show you my block. By pressing my seams open, I don't have to worry about my blue fabric showing through on my white. And to me, that's really important. I don't want my blue fabric to show up over on my white. I just want my white to stand alone. So that's the reason why I'm doing that. I'm going to continue to press all of these the way I've done these 4. And then the next step is I'm going to meet you over at the cutting table. It's time to square our block up. Now we know that this is a 2.5 inch square, and this is 2.5 inches by 1.5 inches. We've already sewn 1/4 of a seam, so now we're down to a 1.25 inch block. So I'm going to take my ruler, and I on this one am going to use this side of my ruler because I can easily see my 1 inch and my 1/4 of an inch. And over here I'm 3.5. You can see that, and here I am 2.5. So I'm just gonna kind of move it around just a little bit to make sure that I'm good and square, and then I'm just going to square it up. And these are just little hairs that we're squaring up, but believe me, in the end it makes a huge difference. Now I'm going to just rotate my block, and again I know that right through here I am 1.25. So here I am at 1/2. There's 1/2, and there's my 1/4. So now I know I'm square this way. The next thing, whoops, I'm off. You guys didn't catch me on that one. All right, so now let's see where we're at. we're at, yep, now we're at 1, here's 1.25 inches. So that block we know is straight. Over here we knew we were at 2.5, now we're at 2.25. Oh, I can adjust just a little bit down there. All right, so now I just have a very little bit here to trim. So I'm going to trim that one. And we'll do another one so that you guys can see exactly what I'm doing again. Again, I've got my block. I'm going to just lay it here. I'm going to put my ruler on it. And I know that I'm 1.25 inches on the white. And I know that my blue is 2.25, because remember we started at 2.5, so we're now at 2.25. So we've got 1, 2.25. So we're good there. Now I need to come up a little bit because I need a little bit more fabric down here at the bottom. All right, I think I look pretty good now, and I'm going to just square it right up. Again, just small amounts coming off, but those small amounts lead up to a big difference. Now we're going to do that again. So I'm lining up. I need my 1.25. I need my 2.25. So here I'm 2 and then 1/4. And I've got my 2.5 here. So yep, I'm good and square again. Whoop, and I just shifted just a little bit, didn't I? All right, there's my next piece. Now that I've done that, if you're looking at your block, you pieced it like this. You had your block in front of you, and you added on this side of it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn my block clockwise once. There we go. And according to the pattern, every time we add a section, we're going to turn it clockwise. So now I'm going to take my next piece, which is 1.5 by 3.5. I'm going to lay it down. Then I'm going to sew 1/4 inch seam. Now remember, we're keeping it a scant quarter. All right. And it wouldn't hurt to do a test block or two with this, just so that you can get an idea of where your scant quarter is on your machine. I'm going to go ahead and sew that. All right, so here I am back. I've got my pieces. I've pressed my seams open. Here's a couple of them. Now I'm going to square them up. Taking my ruler again, we know this is 1.25, this is 1.25. So I'm going to take it, I'm going to line up my 1.25 that way and my 1.25 here. Just making sure that I'm good and square and straight. And I think I'm pretty good now. So I'm going to square it up. Then I'm going to rotate my block. I'm going to do that again. I know my block needs to be 3.5 inches by 3.5 inches. So here I am at 3.5 and 3.5. I've just got a few extra threads, and I'm just going to square it up. There we go. There's another one of our blocks all done. So I'm going to keep going. I'm going to get all of these squared up, and then we'll continue on. So what your task to get done this week is to get all of your blue blocks all cut out and get your first 2 pieces added on, and make certain that in between you're doing 2 things. First one, you're pressing your seams open, and the second one, you're stopping to take a minute and square up every single block as we go. Thank you so much for sticking around all the way to the end of this video. I am so glad you're sewing with me. I really enjoy sharing the projects of what I am doing. If you're not already a member of our Facebook group, please do pop over there and join us. So many people there are sharing pictures of what we are currently working on, which is our 2nd quarter quilt, Liberty Log Cabin, and we've also got a half square triangle exchange going on. So pop on over to Facebook, Margaret Lewin Quilting, and become a member of our group. Again, I'd like to thank you for sticking around all the way to the end. And here are a few more pictures of my children that this quilt was designed in honor of. So don't forget to stop back next week while we continue to work on our Liberty Log Cabin and enjoy the pictures of my family. Thank you so much for being with me. Talk to you soon.
Smiling faces, the family way. Margaret Lou and Quilting will make your day.